I want to show you my first commercial game project, Agent. That's what I've called it. It's supposed to be a micro-narrative simulation game about being the last human check-in agent at an airport that has become fully automated. But I demoed it yesterday, rather showed a video of it yesterday to some peers, and I realized something. I didn't make the game I wanted to. So now what do I do? Hey friendos, it's DW. So today I wanted to talk to you about Agent, and like I said, Agent is meant to be my first commercial video game release. It's the one I've been focusing on. It's the reason I started the whole studio. Now, Agent is meant to be a micro-narrative simulation game. And what I mean by that is there's a whole simulation element to it where you're doing some task and it's simulating it, and there's a bit of micro-narrative in there. So little story sprinkles in there to kind of make it interesting and provide interesting characters along the way. It takes place inside of an airport where you're the last human that's working in a fully automated airport. That's kind of the plot. Now, along that way, you're supposed to deal with the airport rules, and you can think of it as trying to approve or decline different passengers trying to check in and looking at their luggage and trying to figure out a bit more about whether or not they're supposed to be allowed to fly. Now, if you want to think of it in game developer terms, it's kind of like Papers, Please or Quarantine Zone, but with a friendlier, cozier feel. But that comparison was part of my problem, and I'll come back to that later. Alright, so this is version 0.2 of Agent, and this version was meant to be a playable prototype. So I'm showing you a bunch of gameplay of the video I actually showed yesterday in the peer mentoring demonstration. And the plan for this is to build the core loop, make it feel good enough, and get feedback from real people. That's what version 0.2 was supposed to be for me. But the game I was describing about checking in people, catching mistakes, making decisions, and dealing with the consequences, like that's what I'm describing when I talk about the game. And I've described that, how I described the game earlier. But what you're going to see in this demo video is that you don't see catching mistakes and making decisions and checking people in. Really, you see a lot of talking. Just a lot of talking. I mean, you look at the video, it looks more like a visual novel than a simulation game. And the game I wanted to make was a simulation game with a bit of narrative, not a visual novel with a bit of simulation sprinkled in it. So again, no hate onto the visual novel community. I'm a big fan of the bigger players like the Doki Doki Literature Club and Slay the Princess, even Danganronpa. There's lots of these kinds of flavors of games that have a lot of narrative-heavy content. But again, the gameplay that I had described to you previously doesn't show up in this video. And ultimately, it's just not the game that I had in my head. So all of this became apparent to me literally during the first 5 minutes of my meeting with an industry veteran. So I was given the opportunity to meet with an industry vet and get some feedback about starting a studio and like my current state of my game and how that's going to be commercialized and how to like build a business out of video games. And I realized while I was showing that demo that the video game I was describing with the words out of my mouth was not lining up with what was on the screen. I'm saying airport simulation or airport check-in gate simulation, and the screen is saying read more, and that's it. And yeah, that stings quite a bit, honestly. I actually recorded a different devlog the other day about this and slept on it, and I've refactored the whole thing to be what you're seeing now. I mean, when I walked into that meeting, I thought the game was further along than it was. I thought I really had the core design figured out, and I thought this was pretty much ready to start showing people and get real playtest data to kind of work through some of the kinks in the gameplay so I could start developing content. But I'm wrong. I was very wrong. All right, but there's good news out of all of this, okay? The good news is this is why I was showing the game to someone who's an expert. I'm sorry that I wasn't my unearned confidence in game design because I have no real commercial experience or deep experience in doing game design. The fact that I was able to get that feedback now while it's still pretty moldable and stuff is a very good thing. My systems for rule checking and exception checking, like that's still part of the game that I want to do. So like the simulation is in there. It's just that the player's not doing that most of the time. which isn't a good thing. In terms of the not so good news, the game needs to be able to communicate itself, not with me standing over it talking in other games in framing. I shouldn't be talking about Danganronpa and visual novels. I should be talking about what the game is and how it's engaging to players that might have never played those other video games. I might not even be there to describe it. They should be able to look at the game and be interested in what they're seeing on the screen. That's the new challenge. So I need to really boil this down a little bit further and figure out how I can use the existing systems that I've built to create the game I think is still in there, just not quite visible yet. So what does all of this mean? It means I hit a setback, which sucks for me because of the limited amount of time I have to spend on these sorts of things. Like, I'm really juggling a lot of different things to keep this thing moving, but setbacks are going to happen whether I'm busy or not. So might as well happen earlier on in the process than anything. This sucks. I really don't like the memory of this, but it's going to stick with me for a very long time, especially that meeting. Oh my goodness. Everyone, I want to be clear, was super polite and very kind, and they gave me a lot of good information. So much good came out of it. So I just kind of had to, deal with my own feelings and then move forward. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that by refactoring Agent. The simulation game that I want to build is still in there. The mechanics and the systems are in there. It's just that they're not visible. I want to make a simulation game that's micro narrative and really emphasis on the micro aspect of the narrative. My thought is that, my initial thoughts at least, are to sort out the simulation first and kind of rip out that dialogue piece. Stop depending on dialogue to get messages across. Let's focus on getting the gameplay across first, then add dialogue and narrative later. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, let's go.